Hello, everybody, and of course, welcome back to the Podium Podcast, where today we will be previewing the 2025 Australian Grand Prix, which you might call is a Grand Prix preview. Enough of the wordplay, let's go on to it. 2025 has finally come for the Formula One season, and we have our first race weekend. So, of course, we will be looking at the biggest themes and talking points going into the first race weekend, as well as maybe trying to predict the top five of the grids in qualifying and in the race, and maybe throwing in some wild-ish predictions around. Hopefully, I get it right. Hopefully, I'm not washed. But anyway, before we talk about 2025 in that sense, we will be, of course, looking at around 2024. We'll have a little look back to the past. It wasn't exactly a year ago today, the 2024 Grand Prix, or this weekend. It wasn't exactly a year ago. It was later in the year because we had Bahrain and Saudi Arabia as the first two Grand Prix. Then it was Australia in around April time. So, regardless though, Verstappen did manage to put it on pole. Not by a lot though, only by a couple of tenths. But the main talking point of the 2024 Australian Grand Prix was Carlos Sainz coming back from what was a emergency surgery for his appendicitis. He came back after missing the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. Came into Australia maybe not knowing if he was fit enough to drive. Regardless, he still got in the car, and after what was probably a difficult time for him physically and mentally, won the Grand Prix. Most notably, it was down to Max Verstappen having some sort of mechanical failure. He had I think it was a brake duct caught fire or something. Anyway, there's a lot of smoke coming out the back of the car on lap, I think, 3 of the Grand Prix. Anyway, it was a Ferrari 1-2 in Melbourne, with Lando Norris finishing up the podium. Regardless, it was probably, story-wise, it was probably a decent Grand Prix, but, the actual racing was a bit poor. Anyway, enough of that. We will be then going next to be talking about, obviously, this year's Grand Prix. First race of the season, everyone is ecstatic around the Formula One world, because this is the first time where you can actually go into the race weekend and you will have no idea who looks on top. Of course, people can make presumptions about who do you think is going to be fastest around this type of circuit, who do you think has got the best car, who do you think looks in form, who do you think looks out of form, but we don't know that. We are coming in almost a blank slate coming into this weekend, which means we have a couple of big talking points. The first talking point I think I'm going to talk about is who will start on a better foot, who will have that maybe one or two race weekends where they're just miles ahead of everyone, or have that extra 10th in hand, extra 2/10 in hand, which might prove pivotal in the championship. We saw it last year with Verstappen having a really, really solid first half of the season, which kind of cemented his championship fight. Without that first half of the season, would Verstappen win the championship? Probably not. It would have been a lot closer than it was ultimately. But this year, it seems that after testing, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren look like they can be in a shot of taking a Grand Prix victory, which is great for neutrals, and I think it'll make some really good racing. So, who will be the team that will start well? Well, people are saying McLaren, people are saying Ferrari, some people are saying even Red Bull might have a shot. Some people say Mercedes might have an outside shot. However, we do not know. We'll get into what I predict the race will be like in further on in the episode, but I do think that will be probably the biggest talking point going into Melbourne. And after practice, I think we'll have a hopefully decent-ish picture of what the pecking order really does look like. Moving on to probably the second biggest talking point of the weekend, and this one will definitely cause some chaos out there, and I am talking about the weather, because it seems that Melbourne has decided in just this weekend to almost throw everything and anything at the Formula One paddock, because you have got Friday, Saturday more, as extremely warm, There's even a hot weather warning going out across southern Australia. But then if you switch it to Sunday, which I think will be the main talking point, there is an 85% chance of rain for the Grand Prix, which will, of course, throw some chaos out there, especially as it is a street circuit, especially as it is the first race of the season. It will cause chaos. I really do hope, though, it is not as bad as what it can be, e.g., Brazil 2024, because then it would be really, really annoying to get up early in the morning to watch, 4 a.m., to watch the first Grand Prix for it to be, almost a null and void, which I really hope doesn't happen. But, I mean, I think it depends on the intensity of the rain, which will obviously be the deciding factor if the FIA want to continue to carry on with the race. And I really hope they do. I really hope the rain isn't too bad, because it would be a shame for the fans. It would be a shame for the drivers, who I'm sure will be eager to go out there and start driving, pretty much. And I guess these are kind of correlated with this talking point and the next talking point. I'm going to go for just rookies in general. There is I don't know if you can count Liam Lawson, but you've got around 6 fresh new faces on the grid, ready to start their first proper season, hopefully, in Formula 1. You've got, obviously, Isaac Hadjar, Oliver Behrman, Jack Doohan, you've got Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and you've got Gabriel Bortoleto, as well as, you could say Liam Lawson is a rookie-ish, considering he only managed to do half a season in the last 2 seasons, if you know what I mean. But it will cause chaos out there, especially as Australia is a street circuit, and if it actually is raining. Many of these drivers and many of the rookies have not had a proper wet session, or one that is competitive. You look at Bahrain, there's a slight amount of rain, but Australia will be a place where it was either nothing or a hell of a lot of rain, which will prove absolutely chaotic, especially as it's street circuit. There is no room for error around there. Will that make for good racing? I do think it will. But, it's fun for us to watch. I don't think it's really fun for the drivers. Well, I think they will have fun regardless. Circuit check. My favourite part of the podcast episode. What is the Australian Grand Prix going to look like? Well, Albert Park is a very, very quick circuit. You've got 4 DRS straights, which is incredible. Actually, is it 4 or is it 3? It might be 3. I think they might have got rid of it in the second sector. Regardless, it is a very quick circuit. In 2022, they had their changes in order to make the circuit more, overtaking friendly. It has worked. There has been an increase in 2023 and 2024 of the number of overtakes. You've got going into the final sector, which is alright to overtake. You've also got going down into what would be turn 3. And, if you're really brave, you can go down to after I forgot what turn it is. Before sector 3, that quick left right hand. I think turn 11, turn 12. Regardless, it is very dependent also on, tyre wear, which they will only know once they get to practice. I do believe that they are doing the C3, C4, and C5, which is, I think, the hardest of them all. They don't want any, tyre blowouts, which would not be good, because it's a very demanding circuit and it is a street circuit, which means tyre wear will be massive around there. Obviously, if you're looking at just teams, looking back on recent trends, who looks most in form around Australia, you're going to have to give it to Ferrari. They've won in 2022 and 2024 in what was a very Red Bull dominant era. They also won in 2018 as well with Sebastian Vettel. So, they do have their fair share of wins around there. And I do think that there will be something to look at for this weekend. Obviously, we can't, cancel out Red Bull and McLaren, Mercedes, and that lot, which brings me to the best part of the episode. Obviously, we're going to be talking about our predictions. Now, what we're going to do for this one is we're going to predict what should be the top 5 of qualifying, race, and we do something special on this channel, the middle of the race, which is always fun. And at the end, in our race review, we'll have a look at it and be like, how far wrong was I? Anyway, let's start off with qualifying. Qualifying, I'm going to go for P5. I'm going to go for George Russell to be to qualify in 5th position. I do think he's got a fast-ish car underneath him this year. I do think that he is a decent qualifier. He managed to out-qualify Lewis Hamilton quite significantly in 24 last season and 23. And I think a solid P5 will be what he will be aiming for. Whereas P4, I've gone for his old teammate, Sir Lewis Hamilton. I think the 4th would be probably what he's going to be aiming for. I don't think Lewis is extremely strong in his qualifying, and given that this is his first race with a new team, he's obviously going to need time to gel into the car, know how it feels, know where the limits are, which is difficult in just one race weekend. So I think 4th would be probably beneficial for him, whereas I think 3rd will go to home hero Oscar Piastri. I think Piastri will qualify 3rd, whereas his teammate will qualify 2nd. I think Lando Norris will take 2nd position in qualifying, which leaves pole position, and I'm going to lock this in right now. Charles Leclerc will take pole around Albert Park on a Saturday, which will be, I think it will be quite interesting. I do think Ferrari look quite quick. I don't think that they will be quick. I don't think they'll be the quickest throughout the whole season, but if you look at the tendencies, Red Bull don't look that, I suppose, solid. I mean, even Verstappen was talking in the media today about how, look, our car is going to be not at the pace of what McLaren looked like. This is going to be more of a restructuring year, and hopefully 2026 is better. That's their mentality right now, which I do think will upset the Verstappen family, but that is another video in itself. Moving on to the race. Now, this is where the fun happens, because race is where you get the points. P5, of course, I'm going to go for Oscar Piastri to finish in 5th position during the race. I do think that he will struggle in the rain. Also, we need to bear in mind, this is all about the rain. I've got full, in talent rather than car, and I think that this will maybe, hopefully not turn a couple of heads. But anyway, P5, I'm going to go for Oscar Piastri, whereas P4, I'm going to go for Lando Norris to take 4th position, which means that both McLaren drivers will finish lower than they qualified. Why? Rain. Because P3, I've gone for Sir Lewis Hamilton to get a podium in his first race with Ferrari. Almost kind of like getting his first podium in McLaren back in 2007 at the same circuit. I do think he's going to get 3rd. I think he'll be very, very happy with that, as will his teammate in second position. Don't think he'll be happy about that, Leclerc, but I think Charles Leclerc will finish 2nd in the Australian Grand Prix. And 1st position, which I hope doesn't really, actually I don't mind if it turns heads. I'm going to lock in Max Verstappen to finish in 1st position at the Australian Grand Prix. Now, you might be saying, why? Why have you said Max Verstappen? Well, here's the reason why. It is raining. In the rain, Verstappen is, I'm going to say it, the best driver of all time. If you put him in even a mildly competitive car, he will perform, he will do well, and I think he'll win the Grand Prix. Not by a landslide, I think it will be very close, but with rain, I mean, you can't cancel him out. Even if you put him in 17th, you cannot cancel Verstappen out. Obviously, we're going to talk about the middle of the race, which I'll just say quickly because there is no thought process behind it. It's just who do you think is going to be the top 5 during what? I think it's 53 laps around there. So halfway through that, which is what? Let me get my GCSE maths out. 25, 26 and a half. So I've gone for P5 Antonelli. P4 I've gone for Charles Leclerc. P3 I've gone for Lewis Hamilton. And then P2 is Verstappen, whilst Lando Norris should be leading the Grand Prix during lap 26 or whatever, or lap 20. Up to lap 26 to be fair, if it is 53 laps. Biggest winner, I'm going to have to say Williams. I do think Williams look strong. There is a reason why Carlos Sainz decided to leave a seat at Mercedes or a seat at Red Bull or a seat at Sauber to go to Williams, or even Alpine, you could say. Why? Because he knows that there's a strong philosophy behind James Vowles, and I do believe he is going to. I think Williams will get, points. I do see both points on the board for Williams this weekend, and I hope they do well. Biggest loser. Now, I'm going to say this. I think McLaren will be the biggest loser of this weekend. If my predictions are correct, a P4 and P5, considering the amount of almost hype that they're getting from testing from Bahrain, everyone, you look at Twitter and it's like, oh, they're in their race run, they're 0.3 quicker per lap than anybody else. That might all be good in the dry, but in the wet, it's a different story. And I do think that they'll look at maybe this weekend as like, oh, this happened, but I do think they'll still be title contenders, and I still back Lando Norris to win the World Championship. But you can also argue that these are races which you need to be strong in order to secure a championship. Now, one crazy prediction. I don't know if this is crazy or not because, considering the weather, but I will say that there'll be more than 5 DNFs, and I will put money on that, to be fair, because it will be a hell of a race, if there is a race, but I really hope there is. I really hope the rain doesn't ruin it all. But anyway, I think that's a great place to wrap up the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and have a simply lovely day. Goodbye.